So, Group B. I'm not really, being half American, I'm not really thrilled. I'm not gonna lie.
Me neither, man.
I'm not really thrilled about this World Cup. I have no confidence. But let's kind of break it down here. So, let's start with Wales, right? It's their first World Cup in, what is it, 6 decades now? 66 years, right? Is that correct? 66 years or 58 years?
Yeah. The last time they qualified was 1958, I think.
1958. My God, that's a long time. So, what do you expect of Wales? We know that they're not going to be the most attacking side, very defensive, and then, they just got quality up top that can hit you on the counterattack. And you look at the guys, they got experience like Ramsey, Gareth Bale. Even though I don't really rate Dan James, he actually turns up for the Welsh national team. So, what are you kind of expecting from Wales? Are you expecting that, they're going to make life difficult, they're not going to get obliterated, they won't obliterate other teams? What are you feeling with Robert Page's side?
This is a side nobody should be doubting, for sure. Page has been doing a fantastic job since he took over for Giggs. And the quality they have, like you said, is great. They've proved it in major tournaments already. Deep run in Euro 2016, topping England back then as well. I know that was a long time ago, and England were very much a mess back then. Their squad is very much improved. Yeah. But then again, I hate to jump from team to team, but England's recent Nations League break also has people questioning. So maybe Wales can do it again. Who knows? Gareth Bale's first and last World Cup, that's going to be a major talking point. And although he hasn't been necessarily balling out in the MLS, he hasn't been getting a lot of playing time. Still, for the national team, he appears to be their hero many, many times. We saw it in Austria in the playoffs. And a lot of youngsters like Johnson, Neco Williams. I think this side definitely have potential to squeeze out of this group. It's really England on paper are the favorites, but those other three, Iran, USA, Wales, these are all teams that I really think have a solid shout at making it out. It's really going to be a 50-50 battle between all of them.
And do you think a lot of people are taking into account what Wales produced in the Nations League recently? It wasn't a great campaign, right? But if you look at June especially, they were just focused on Ukraine. That's all they cared about. They couldn't care less about the Nations League. Maybe the last two performances, it got a little bit better. So do you think maybe people are taking too much into account with those performances?
I think they're the one team. I agree with you. I think they're the one team that you got to somewhat take out the equation of their Nations League performances, because that first match against Poland, they played so many sub players because, like you said, they wanted to focus against Ukraine. That was a few days later. They weren't going to risk any injuries, of course. That was their main goal, to do well in that match. And then later on, they had to come up against Belgium, Netherlands. These are two massive teams in Europe. This was a very difficult group for them. Of course, they didn't get the best result against Poland the next match, but, this is still a side that I really much have faith in doing well. I don't think we should really assess them on the Nations League too much, because this is an easier group for them compared to Belgium and Netherlands. Now you're coming up against Iran, a shaky USA, and even a shaky England that they have gone results against before. So, yeah, I think it's not the best assessment, unlike other teams.
Yeah, and that first match day against the United States, that's going to be a pivotal game in this group. I mean,
definitely
very, very pivotal. So I do like what Wales are doing, and I think they could just turn it in a moment just because of Gareth Bale. And you said, look what he did against Austria. The guy didn't play any minutes for Real Madrid. What does he do? Scores 2 goals in a pivotal game. So I like this Welsh side, but let's see. It's going to be interesting to see in the World Cup. Now, I'll start off with this one because I do have his username as my name, Greg Vibes Berhalter, and the United States. Look.
Perfect name.
It is a perfect name because that's what he is. This team is so talented, but they just don't have the experience in this sort of stage in international football. It's good. You could play all the CONCACAF teams. You can beat them at home. You could beat them in the Gold Cup because it's hosted in the United States. But now, this is where the money is made. Who will rise to the occasion? And I have to be honest, I don't think the United States will rise to the occasion. Striker, nobody's consistent. Even though Ricardo Pepi is now scoring goals for Groningen in the Eredivisie, he hasn't been performing that well for the United States. And, just Greg, man, he just loves his favorites. So it's going to be interesting to see what his final squad will look like. If we see the likes of Jordan Pefok, or is he going to be the favorites as usual? And then Christian Pulisic, you got to step up. You just have to step up. This is a big moment. You've been talking about the World Cup. You talked about the disaster in Trinidad and Tobago. Christian Pulisic, Captain America, apparently needs to step up in this World Cup. But defensively, I am scared. The two center backs, oh God, whether it's Walker Zimmerman, who I don't think he's decent, but playing out of the back is going to be a nightmare. So, I mean, what do you make of the United States? I mean, is it just a disaster waiting to happen, or do you think with the World Cup, the bright moment, they can step up?
There's always hope. You can't lose hope, U.S. fans. I think
I've lost hope already. Sorry.
I mean, I have too. To be fair, I agree with every point you've said. But the USA still have decent success in tournaments like the Gold Cup, the Nations League. I believe they're the current holders of both of those.
But the thing is, those are like, okay, no disrespect to CONCACAF. You're playing the likes of El Salvador, who have gone better. You're playing the likes of Grenada. You're playing the likes of Bermuda. You're not playing England. You're not playing top UEFA or CONMEBOL competition. So that's kind of the issue I have with the competition they face in CONCACAF. But continue.
I 100% agree with that. This is going to be way much more of a challenge. But again, this isn't me trying to disrespect any of these teams. Like, I really value the Iran side. I really value Wales, even England. But this is a group where they still might be able to squeeze out. If they were in any other group, I would have less faith in them. Because although Iran have been really looking better in these recent international breaks, still, U.S. might be able to be hopeful to squeeze a result against them. The one issue that I have with the U.S., though, is their away record is absolutely terrible. Even in the World Cup qualifiers, it was just horrendous. They couldn't pull results against teams they were very much better than on paper. This whole tournament's away. I mean, this isn't going to be 2026. They got to wait for that to be the home team. So, yeah, I don't have the most faith for them, but I don't want to necessarily completely lose hope. But like you said, Greg Vibes Berhalter, he's not the man for the job. I don't necessarily have the most hope with the likes of him in charge.
I think the only away victory they got in the World Cup qualifiers was Honduras. And we saw how bad Honduras were during the World Cup qualifiers. So yeah, that's a great point as well. They don't have that comfort of being at home. So the adversity is going to be there for this side. And let's see how they react. And I think one positive thing is the midfield is really good. When you have Musa, you have Tyler Adams, you have Weston McKennie. So the United States midfield is going to be good. It's just the center back and the striker that really concerns me.
Oh, definitely.
I think that's where the biggest concern is. And in a World Cup, those are the most key positions, I would say, alongside your midfield, of course. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting for the United States. And then Iran obviously made a bold decision, hiring back Carlos Queiroz. And you know what? For this side that have never, in their history, progressed out of the group stage, I think this is their best opportunity. You agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I've already mentioned, this is a group of hope for the other three teams, Iran, USA, Wales. Again, we could see England mess up, but yeah, Iran were in such a deadly group last time and they nearly made it out. That just goes to show, don't sleep on this side in the first place. With Carlos Queiroz back, they have the hope and belief. I think this side has every right to be hopeful to make it out of this group this time around. They can definitely beat the USA based on the way the USA have been playing, where they lost to two other Asia countries in this recent international break. Iran, respectfully, were one of the better sides in Asia, so they really should be beating the USA, considering everything going on recently in terms of both of those sides. Wales will be a toss-up. It's really hard to not believe in a side like Wales because they always seem to prove people wrong. Even in the last Euros, I thought they would be down and out when everybody was hyping up Turkey. Wales ended up topping them. So, yeah, this Iran side is just absolutely incredible. The striker partnership, there is rumors about Azmoun being injured, but he should be returning before the World Cup, from my knowledge. Taremi has been brilliant, though. This side likes to play defensively based on what we saw in the last World Cup. We'll see if they implement those tactics once again, because these are sides where they should feel more confident to kind of play a more attacking role, if that makes sense, as opposed to like Spain and Portugal.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And, Carlos Queiroz ball, it's defense, defense, defense. Don't concede and win games 1-0. That's his blueprint. That's his DNA. That's his bread and butter. So I do like this Iranian side. I think it was a bit of a interesting decision to sack the former manager and then hire back Carlos Queiroz, but it might pay off. It might just pay off. So I think Iranians should be very hopeful in this World Cup because, let's be honest, the United States and Wales are not Portugal or Morocco from the last World Cup, right? So this is a great opportunity, and they have to take it. If they can't make it out of this group, I don't know when they will, because there's just so many question marks when it comes to the other teams. But like you said, when you got guys like Jahan Bash, you got Osman and Taremi, you got goals on the counterattack, especially Taremi, who loves to get a penalty, by the way. Man, that guy, he loves to dive. If you watch him in Porto, man, he loves to dive for every situation. So Iranians, be hopeful. And then the last team, of course, is England. You know, Southgate isn't the greatest manager, but this team is talented. But they have some injury concerns. I think the injuries of Walker and Reece James are too massive. So who's going to be playing center back for this team? Stones, if he's going to come back fit. You got Harry Maguire, he's guaranteed to start. Right? He's guaranteed to start, Harry Maguire.
That's what Southgate said.
All right, then he's going to start. So I really don't know with England. I don't think this is a team that's going to make it to the semifinals. I expect them to make it to the quarterfinals based on the talent that they have. But sometimes the talent just doesn't produce on the field. So what do you kind of think with England? Do you think it's people are writing them off because how poor they have been in the last couple of games? Or do you think they could just turn it around and Harry Kane and whoever else starts for the English side, they can just turn it into a masterpiece?
You know, I respect England fans for still being hopeful despite the terrible Nations League campaign they had, but I still do not agree with some of their statements about how the Nations League doesn't matter because, I mean, it clearly does. Now they're finally in a tough group in the Euro qualifiers. They're going to have to face Italy next. Mm-hmm. So that point doesn't really make sense. And of course, it's great preparation. And yeah, they haven't been living up to that hype. And like you mentioned about Southgate, yeah, I had a lot more faith in him being a solid manager for the national team. I mean, he has great success in these major tournaments, World Cup semifinals, Euro finals. So everyone's expecting him to level up once again. I mean, even though these Nations League matches were terribly disappointing, of course, England's still going to stay hopeful. You know, the it's coming home chants aren't going to stop anytime soon. But, you know, like you mentioned, Maguire, Southgate said that he's going to be guaranteed starting. We'll see if that ends up happening. He's definitely going to be in a squad. That's no question. But,
oh, yeah, that's a guarantee.
Yeah. But like you said, injuries as well. Reece James, I think that's a massive loss. Mm-hmm. Massive. Of course, they still have depth in that fullback position, but I believe Kyle Walker will potentially be missing it as well.
Yeah, it's a question mark with Kyle Walker.
Yeah, and I mean, they still got Trent and Trippier. Trippier's been solid. Mm-hmm. Trent has been having a questionable season. I hate to say it. I love the guy, but really has not been living up to his previous years. Might not be the most reliable defender, especially if you already got the likes of Maguire leaking silly goals.
Ooh, so can you imagine the right side of England if it's Harry Maguire and Trent? Oh god.
Oh god. Oh god.
So
that'd be tragic.
I think for England, like before that game against Germany, they only scored one goal and it was a penalty.
Yeah. Yep. That was their only match where they were really looking more clinical up front. Yeah. There have been some complaints that Southgate relies on Harry Kane to do too much for the national team. He's a fantastic player for them without a doubt, but you know, he's got to be utilizing all the other great talent they have, and he's not giving a lot of other players chances to shine. Doesn't really seem to believe in Serie A talent like Tomori and Smalling, who have been playing great in the Italian league, which to me doesn't make sense. He clearly has his favorites, and it's obviously a criticism for the USA as well. I've already been seeing some memes, who's going to score more own goals, Long or Maguire. But
oh man, don't even put that in the atmosphere, please. Don't.
I mean, who knows, man? It's going to be definitely, you know, without a doubt, from England's recent performances, that Nations League group was very tough. Even though they lost to a massive underdog, 4-0, that's really an underrated side in Europe.
Yeah.
And these are all teams they still should be beating, but I don't see them going out 100% clean in this. They could have some iffy points, and then when it comes to the knockouts, I agree with you. Quarterfinals for me seems like it could be the best go for them. Once they face a major team, it could be trouble.
So, just quickly before we move on to the next group, I mean, even the first match day, like England against Iran, that ain't gonna be no joke. And United States Wales, every game in this group is gonna be super intense. Obviously, you know, every game in the World Cup is super intense, and we all know that. And there's so much on the line, but I think in this group, the first match day is just massive. I think it's just super vital to how this group will play out. So, when are they both be playing on the same day? 21st of November. Book that, people. If you're working that day, don't work. That's all I have to say too. Don't work that day. I don't care if you have to tell your boss, don't work that day, because these two games especially, it could get tasty. And then obviously 25th of November, it goes down.
Imagine if Berhalter's vibes beats the amazing England. I mean, that would just be nuts.
I know people are going to call it football versus soccer. I call it the PE teacher derby. That's what I call it. That's what I called the United States versus England. Let's see who the best PE teacher is in the world.